morning, everybody. Welcome to our live training at 10. I'm just here to kind of greet you this morning before Jenna comes out. And I hope that you're all doing okay with your own sit and stay at home. We're using this opportunity to train our dogs too. And each of our staff is getting involved. And so every Monday, Wednesday and Friday, when you tune in for Jenna, you're going to get to meet one of our staff members and their pup and check on their progress and how we're all doing at the training. So a lot of you know that I have a Great Dane, Truly, and we've been working on her weight. It's been really important in our house because she's such a big dog, and we have another very elderly dog and a teeny tiny dog, and so she was kind of running over them coming through the gate or the doorway, and at meal times you don't want a big dog jumping on you, and so we use weight for that, and it's been life-changing. So come and let's see how she's doing with it. Truly! This is Truly and Zoe. Get down. Sit. Sit, True. Good girl. Wait. Now, I'm going to walk all the way over to the kitchen and get her food bowl, and we'll see if she stays in her weight position. Keep an eye on her. Check out weight again. Weight. Okay. There, good job, Truly. All right, and now Jenna is here with our day's training.
All right, hey guys, I've got Darcy here helping me out at the beginning. Just want to shout out to some of our most common viewers, Leslie, Lori, and Jamie. Good to see you guys. Thanks for always joining us, and welcome the rest of you. It's Friday, thank goodness. So excited about that. The weather's been great this weekend. Good time to get out and work with your dogs. So let's take advantage of that. I know tomorrow at least is supposed to be good. So definitely take advantage of that with your dogs. So today what we're going to be going over is come when called or recall. Some of you know it as different terms. But so that can be the most common issue that a lot of people have, one of the biggest issues that a lot of people have. And I think sometimes we just think dogs, we get dogs, and they should just kind of know to come to us when we call them, and that's not true. You know, when your kids go to school, the teachers be like, oh, I think you should know this, answer to this equation. They don't do that either. So with dogs, we can't have them coming to us expecting them to know, that when we call them to come to us when we've never even worked on it, and, not considering all the different distractions that are of an interest to a dog. So it is something you have to work on. And always working just like anything else, working in a low-key environment where there's not many distractions at first is really important as well. So we want them to be successful. So start off where you can make sure they're successful 100% of the time. So I'm kind of just going to have Darcy read off some things, and I'm going to explain them along the way. And then I will demonstrate with Miss Zoe here on a few different exercises that you guys can work on.
So the first thing is to keep their name as positive as possible, and if you want to, come up with a nickname for them if they like.
Yeah, so what that means is you want to keep their name, like she said, as positive as possible. So what that means is if you're calling your dog and you're saying their name every time they're in trouble, they're going to associate that with when you call them. So they're not going to want to come to you every time. So what can be helpful is having like a nickname when you do call them or when they are in trouble, that you can kind of separate from their actual name. So again, keep their name as positive as possible and come when called as positive as possible. Okay, the next one.
And the second thing is do not call them for something unpleasant, like a nail trim or brushing or bath.
Yeah, so if you know there's something your dog really doesn't like, don't call them to you from a distance and then start trimming their nails or brushing them out when you know they hate it. Because again, they're gonna associate that with you calling them to you. So they're never gonna, every time you start calling, they're like, oh, well, every time she trims my nails when she calls me, so I'm not gonna come to her because I don't want a nail trim. So that's just something to keep in mind with that as well.
And the last thing is to keep in mind things that are valuable to dogs. And smell is the #1 distraction for dogs, and other distractions are other animals and other people.
Yeah, so keeping in mind what's of value to a dog. So, you know, going out to a park, what's going to be your dog's #1 distraction? Their smell. Dogs have like, you know, thousands more scent receptors than we do. There's going to be dog smells in the grass, there's going to be other smells in the grass, maybe food people dropped on the floor. So keeping that in mind, like squirrels I know is one of the biggest distractions for dogs, especially dogs that have major prey drive. So keeping those factors in mind is really important because again, you want to set your dog up to be successful. So practicing in those different scenarios is really important. You know, let's say you just practice in the house where there's no distractions, and then you go out to a park and expect your dog to come to you. When you've never practiced it, that's not very realistic. You have to get out and practice recall with your dogs where there's distractions and in different situations and different scenarios in order for it to be 100% reliable recall. So those are just a few things to keep in mind. Let's say your dog is in the backyard off in the distance and you see them chewing on a plant or digging up a plant. I know that's something that's very common. You know, make sure you go to them, one, to show them what they're doing is wrong so they visually actually see what they're doing and what you don't want them to do. Never call them to you and then yell at them because again, they're like, why are you yelling at me? I didn't do it here, I did it way over there. And then you're also associating negativity with calling them to you. So those are just a few important things with recall that'll be really helpful for you guys to keep in mind and make sure you don't do, and make sure you get off to a good start with that, especially if you have puppies. It's never too late to kind of reframe your dog's mindset to that. And it's also important just knowing what your dog is really motivated by. So Zoe here is mostly motivated by food. So when I'm working on recall, I'm going to use a special reward that I probably will only use with recall, like whether it's cheese or peanut butter, because every time I call her, she's going to have that in the back of her mind. So if she thinks twice about not coming to me, she's going to be like, oh, but wait a minute, I get that really good stuff, but I only get that good stuff when she calls me, and I actually come to her. So that's a good way to practice. Also, if your dog is very toy motivated, you may include a ball, or like my dog Floki is very motivated by a Frisbee. So I'll call him from a distance, he comes to me, toss the Frisbee a few times, then I let him get distracted, recall him again to me. If he comes to me, I make a game out of it. Dogs are all about a game. So we want to make a game with recall before dogs do. So typically what you'll see with that is if we don't make it fun and a game and we don't practice, dogs will do that for us, and it's usually not in the best way. So what you'll typically see is if your dog gets out the front door, they'll dart down the street, you call them, they turn around like, actually, I want you to come chase me. Then what do? We start chasing them because we panic. And chasing them, even in a desperate situation, chasing them is the last thing you want to do, because in your dog's mind, they're like, aha, I know exactly how to get my owner to play with me and get my owner's attention. And then every time they dart out, they're going to make it a chasing game. So we have to practice ahead of time and beat them to it and make it a game ourselves before they make it a game for us. So we're going to demonstrate with Zoe here a few different ways to work on it, kind of some basic principles on how to start with that. And then kind of a fun game with hide and seek on how to make it a fun game with your dog. So if you have a puppy, or if you're just kind of starting practicing this in general, again, start with low distractions. So in the house with a leash on, you do want to start on a leash first because that just kind of helps set boundaries in the beginning. If you have a very stubborn or very confident dog, or just a dog that gets distracted very easily, you don't want them just getting up and walking off in the middle of you trying to work on it. Having them on a leash kind of helps them stay focused on you and what you're doing. And it's a good way to work on distance along the way. So I would just start on a regular 6-foot leash first. Have some treats. If your dog's not treat motivated, then you can just use affection or a toy if you want to play tug with them for a little bit. You could do that as well. So all I'm going to do, first I want her to know that when she does come to me, she gets rewarded. So that's the first principle you really want them to understand and learn, is that when they do come to me, they get a big reward for it. So all I'm going to do is show her what I have. I'm going to say her name and then call her to me. Zoe, come! Good. And be sure not to reward them if they try to jump on you, because if you get in a habit of that, they're going to start thinking they get treats when they jump up on you. So wait for them to just stay off or sit down when they come to you. Good girl. So again, I'm going to say her name and call her to me. Zoe, come. Good. There you go. Good girl. Two, when I call her, I want to wait and reward her till she actually gets up to me. Make sure you don't get in the habit of rewarding your dog out here, because what will happen is the one day that you do practice to try to recall out in the yard or where there's distractions, you're basically teaching your dog to only come up to here. When if you're in a dog park or near a street or something and you call your dog to you, you want to be able to grab them. So you want them to come right up to you so you can immediately grab them if you have to, whether it's just to grab them to put their leash on or to hold them for a few seconds. So if you only teach them to come this far up to you, that's barely in reaching distance, and then you can barely reach them, and if your dog gets distracted, they've probably already turned around and ran the other way. So when you practice having them come all the way up to you. Zoe, come! Good girl. Good. So that was a perfect example because she was slightly distracted, and I said her name, called her, and she still came to me, so that was really good. Zoe is doing our train and play package, and so I think this is her 3rd week. She's doing really great. And so then what you can do is once you have a pretty reliable recall just from about 6 feet away, you can start working on more distance, and then kind of just start letting them wander, get distracted, and then the minute they get distracted, try saying their name and calling them to you. So I'm going to kind of just walk around, see if she gets distracted by something, which she's very food motivated,
Zoe.
so she probably won't get distracted away from
Zoe.
me.
Zoe, 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 Zoe.
Zoe, come! Zoe, come! Yes! There you go. Good girl. Good. Good job. Do it again.
Zoe, 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 come. Come here.
Zoe, come! Good. There you go. Good. So just the minute they look the other way or they start to sniff on the ground for something, that's a perfect opportunity to test it out and see how they respond. So that's kind of the next thing I would start working on. Then what you can do is work on adding more distance. So what I recommend getting is like a 15-foot or 30-foot leash and doing the exact same thing, but working on longer distance. So maybe have them, you in the living room and your dog sniffing, getting distracted in the kitchen, and then bam, say their name and call them to you. And if they come to you, again, this is supposed to be fun, making it a game, so you want to get really, really excited when they do listen and come to you, because you want you to be more important and more exciting than a squirrel running out in the grass in the future or another dog off at a distance. So kind of just keep that in mind. You want to, even if you look like a crazy person, that's okay. You'd rather look like a crazy person than your dog be hit by a car. So kind of just keep that in mind. Because recall can become a life or death situation. So Something else too, if you are in a desperate situation with recall, let's say your dog does dart out to the street and there's a car coming, or your dog just isn't paying attention to you. Again, number one, do not chase them. Number two, something you could do is if you turn around, kind of throw your arms up, okay, whatever, and start walking off towards the door, they'll be like, wait a minute, why is she not chasing me? Or where is she going? Or is there something more interesting that she's seeing? Usually that will work, and they're gonna wanna come to you and check out kind of where you're headed off to, what you're going to do, and they will learn that what they're trying to do doesn't work. Another thing you can do is, if you are in a desperate situation, flop down to the ground, kind of wail around screaming. And again, you will look like a crazy person, but I'd rather look like a crazy person than my dog not come to me when a car coming on is heading towards them. And what's gonna happen is your dog's gonna be concerned, they're gonna wanna come to you, check you out, so the minute they do, then you're able to grab them and then take them inside. The next thing that you could do and practice with your dog is teach your dog to come to you with a clicker. So what the clicker does is it marks what you want, and so what happens is they pair and learn that they get a reward by the sound of the clicker. So that's kind of what most clickers sound like. Every clicker actually has a slightly different tone to it. So you can incorporate that with come and call. And how you would do that is you would kind of just what's called load the clicker, get them warmed up to what the clicker is about. So every time you do that, every time you click, you just give them a treat. Get it? And they don't need to see the clicker, they just need to hear it. Because most of the time they can hear the clicker from a pretty far distance. So like Zoe's pretty familiar with it. So then what you would do is once they notice their understanding of what the clicker is, which is every time you click, they get a reward by the sound of it. So I'm going to call her, and the minute she starts to come to me, I'm gonna mark it because that's what I want, and by marking it, I mean click. And then when she actually gets to me, I'm gonna click and then follow that up with a reward. So that's how she's gonna pair coming to me, and by the sound of the clicker all together, she gets a big reward for that. So we come. Good. Good girl. So we come. Yes, good. Good girl. There you go. So we come. Good. Perfect. So same thing, just work on that with short distance first, and then start working on it with longer distance, and then eventually, same thing, let them get distracted, randomly click it, say their name, and then call them, and then when they get to you, click and reward as well. So I'm gonna kind of toss a treat over here to distract her, and then the minute she starts going the other way, I'm gonna click, call her, and see if she comes to me. Get all of them? Okay, I'm gonna do it again. So we come. Yes, good girl. So she started to slightly get distracted with the smell on the way, but she still chose to come to me. So especially when that happens, really make a big deal out of that because they had an opportunity to kind of dig into something else and be interested in something else, but she still chose to come to me, which is great. So you really want to praise and reward them for that. And something else that can be helpful with recall is, especially if you have property or you're wanting to do a lot of off-leash stuff at parks and stuff with your dog, something to keep in mind is there are parks that will fine you for your dog not being on a leash. But if you're wanting to do stuff off-leash with your dog, an e-collar can be a great option. There is a proper way to train that to your dog. Definitely don't do it unless you have a trainer helping you. Dogtra is my absolute go-to brand for an e-collar. Super basic and easy to use, but also really reliable. So if you have any questions about that, let me know, and we can get you started on that. That's something else that can be really helpful because most of their e-collars go almost up to a mile away. So that's the only way, if you have a really distracted dog, that you're going to be able to get your dog to come to you with distractions. So keep that in mind as well. That's another option, especially if you live on property. Another way you can kind of make come and called a fun game in their mind is playing hide and seek with your dog. So if you have kids, round your kids up and start practicing this with your dog. Kids love this. The dogs love it as well. Again, it's all about making recall a fun game in their mind. So every time you call them, they're like, oh, that's that fun game we played the other day. So they're always going to want to come to you because it means it's game time. So you'll kind of need 2 people typically to practice this. So you'll have one person hold the dog, and then the other person has treats, and they go hide somewhere. And what you do is when you're ready, you say ready, they let your dog go, and then you keep calling them until they find you. And then once they find you, you give them a treat, then you hold the dog while the other person goes and hides somewhere. So we're going to demonstrate that. I'm going to grab Darcy real quick, and we'll demonstrate that a couple of times for you. Darcy? Does she?
True.
Okay, we'll have Destiny hold her. So I'm going to have Destiny hold her, have some treats on me. I'm going to go hide somewhere. I wouldn't hide too hard at first, but I'm just going to kind of go hide around the corner. I'll hide behind the wall here. Okay, ready? Silly, come! Come here, Silly! Come here! Oh, good girl! You did it! Good! Good job! All right! And I'll have Destiny hold her again, and I'll go hide somewhere else. So this is something you can kind of just do back and forth, and dogs absolutely love it. Okay, Silly, come! Come here, Silly! Come here, Silly! Come on, come on, come on! Silly, come here! Oh, good girl. There you go. Good. Good job. Perfect. All right, so those are some different ways to work on a really great recall. Again, if you have any trouble with it or any questions, message us, comment, let us know. Keep those videos coming. So we have an announcement for a couple of our winners for the tricks. Janie with Justice has won the high five video. Awesome job, guys. So you guys get a free 30-minute session with me. Let us know. We can set that up whenever. And then we have Addie Sanchez with June. He's won the spin video. So way to go, guys. I love seeing those videos. Keep those coming. Keep your kids involved. Keep them working with your dog. Great bonding for all of you. Thank you for joining us. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys on Monday.